In the heart of ancient Rome, in the year 44 BC, a single dagger changed the course of history. Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in the world, lies dead betrayed by those he trusted most. The Republic is in chaos. Senators scheme, armies clash, and the streets of Rome run red with ambition. Amid this turmoil, a young man, barely 18 years old, steps into the spotlight. His name is Gaius Octavius, but history will know him as Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. How does a boy with no military experience, no political clout, and no wealth of his own rise from the ashes of betrayal to forge an empire that would shape the world for centuries? This is not just a story of power. It's a tale of cunning, survival, and a vision so grand it transformed a crumbling republic into an eternal empire. Welcome to the epic saga of Augustus, the architect of Rome's golden age. Picture Rome in the wake of Caesar's assassination. The Senate is a snake pit of rival factions, each vying for control. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general, commands respect and fear, his eyes set on ruling alone. Elsewhere, the assassins Brutus and Cassius proclaim themselves liberators, but their hands are stained with blood. The people are restless, torn between loyalty to Caesar's memory and fear of what comes next. Into this chaos steps Octavius, named Caesar's heir in a will no one saw coming. He's young, untested, and underestimated by all. Yet, within a decade, he will outmaneuver every rival, defeat the mighty Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and build an empire that stretches from the Atlantic to the sands of Egypt. What drove him? Was it ambition, vengeance, or a destiny he alone could see? This is no ordinary tale of conquest. Augustus didn't just win battles. He mastered the art of power. He turned enemies into allies, manipulated Rome's traditions to his advantage, and crafted an image of himself as both savior and god. From the blood-soaked fields of Philippi to the decisive naval clash at Actium, from the marble halls of the Senate to the golden temples of a reborn Rome, his journey is a masterclass in strategy and survival. But it's also a story of sacrifice, betrayal, and the cost of greatness. Who was the real Augustus? A hero who brought peace, or a tyrant who hid his iron fist behind a velvet glove? In this hour-long journey, we'll uncover the truth. We'll follow Octavius as he rises from obscurity to become Augustus, the man who gave us the Pax Romana 200-year era of peace and prosperity that changed the world. If you've been captivated by the stories of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, this is the next chapter in Rome's epic saga. So, settle in, and let's unravel the mystery of how one man reshaped an empire and why his legacy still echoes today. The stage is set. The story begins now. The stage is set, and the story of Augustus begins in a Rome teetering on the edge of collapse. Julius Caesar's blood still stains the Senate floor, and the Republic is fracturing under the weight of ambition and betrayal. Gaius Octavius, an unassuming teenager, has just been named Caesar's era revelation that shocks the Roman elite. But how does a boy with no experience navigate a world of seasoned generals, cunning senators, and bloodthirsty assassins? This is where our journey takes its first steps, into the crucible of chaos that forged Augustus. Welcome to Chapter 1, The Heir of Caesar. In 44 BC, Rome is a city of whispers and daggers. The assassination of Julius Caesar has left a gaping void. Caesar wasn't just a man. He was a symbol of power, a dictator who had brought order to a republic plagued by civil war. His death unleashes a storm. The Senate, led by men like Cicero, dreams of restoring the old republic, free from the grip of any one man, but others see opportunity in the chaos. Mark Antony, Caesar's right-hand man, strides into the power vacuum with the confidence of a seasoned warrior. Charismatic and battle-hardened, Antony commands the loyalty of Caesar's legions and the adoration of the Roman mob. To him, the Republic is a prize to be won, and he intends to claim it. Meanwhile, Brutus and Cassius, the lead conspirators in Caesar's murder, call themselves liberators, rallying support to protect the Senate's authority. The stage is a powder keg, and Rome waits for a spark. Into this maelstrom steps Gaius Octavius, a frail, sickly 18-year-old from a modest family in Velletri, a small town south of Rome. He's the grandson of Caesar's sister, Julia, but until now, he's been a nobody in the grand tapestry of Roman politics. Octavius is studying in Apollonia, a Greek city across the Adriatic, when word arrives. Caesar is dead, and he, Octavius, is named the primary heir in Caesar's will. This is no small inheritance. Caesar's wealth, name, and political legacy are now his, but so are his enemies. Imagine the weight of that moment. A teenager, barely old enough to shave, suddenly thrust into the center of a deadly power struggle. The Senate scoffs at him. Antony dismisses him as a boy. Even Caesar's own soldiers are skeptical. Yet Octavius possesses something his rivals lack: a calculating mind and an unshakable resolve. Let's pause to consider why Caesar chose Octavius. The dictator had no legitimate son, only a daughter, Julia, and an adopted son in all but name, Mark Antony. Caesar's affair with Cleopatra had produced a son, Caesarion, but he was too young and too foreign to inherit Rome's mantle. Octavius, though distant in blood, was a blank slate, malleable, loyal, and free from the baggage of Rome's political feuds. Caesar saw potential in the boy, perhaps even a reflection of his own ambition. By adopting Octavius in his will, Caesar gave him more than wealth. He gave him a name that carried divine weight. To the Roman people, Caesar was no mere surname. It was a rallying cry, a symbol of strength and victory. Octavius understood this from the start. He wasted no time, taking the name Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, though history knows him as Octavian for now. Octavian's first challenge is survival. He sails back to Italy, landing in Brundisium in the spring of 44 BC. Here, he learns the full scope of his inheritance: Caesar's vast fortune, his client networks, and the loyalty of many of his legions. But inheritance alone won't keep him alive. Antony holds Rome's military power, and the assassins control key provinces. Octavian's youth and inexperience make him a target, but they also become his greatest asset. He moves cautiously, presenting himself as the dutiful son avenging his father. He begins to court Caesar's veteran soldiers, who fought in Gaul and Egypt, men who loved Caesar like a god. With promises of land and coin, Octavian wins their allegiance, building a private army. This is a bold move for a teenager, but it shows his knack for reading people. He knows the soldiers' loyalty isn't to the republicans, to Caesar's memory. Let's shift to Rome itself, where Octavian arrives in May 44 BC. The city is a political minefield. Antony is consolidating power, delivering fiery speeches to sway the mob. He's already clashed with Cicero, the Senate's most eloquent voice, who sees Antony as a threat to republican ideals. Octavian, however, plays a different game. He avoids direct confrontation with Antony, instead focusing on public displays of piety. He organizes games and festivals in Caesar's honor, using his inherited wealth to win the crowd's affection. These aren't just celebrations, they're propaganda. Octavian positions himself as Caesar's true heir, the one who will carry his legacy forward. The people begin to chant his name, and the Senate takes notice. But not everyone is charmed. Antony, sensing a rival, mocks Octavian as a boy who owes everything to a name. It's a mistake Antony will come to regret. The tension between Octavian and Antony sets the stage for a delicate dance. Octavian knows he can't challenge Antony's military might head-on. Instead, he turns to the Senate, led by Cicero, who despises Antony. Cicero sees Octavian as a useful tool, a young, pliable ally to counter Antony's dominance. In a series of speeches known as the Philippics, Cicero rails against Antony, painting him as a tyrant in waiting. Octavian plays along, offering his growing army to the Senate's cause. By late 44 BC, the Senate grants Octavian Imperium the legal authority to command troops despite his youth. This is a stunning coup for a 19-year-old, but it comes at a cost. Octavian is now a pawn in the Senate's game, and his alliance with Cicero is one of convenience, not trust. As we move deeper into this story, the lines of loyalty blur. Octavian's rise isn't just about charm and cunning, it's about survival in a world where betrayal is currency. The Senate, Antony, and the assassins all underestimate him, seeing only a boy. But Octavian is already laying the groundwork for a power grab that will outshine them all. His next step is to confront the assassins directly, joining forces with an unlikely ally, Mark Antony himself. How does this uneasy alliance form, and what does it mean for Rome? Let's follow the thread to the battlefields of Philippi, where blood will decide the Republic's fate. In 43 BC, Octavian and Antony set aside their rivalry to form the Second Triumvirate, a formal alliance with a third figure, Lepidus, a lesser but loyal Caesarian. This isn't a partnership of friends, it's a marriage of necessity. Their goal is to crush Brutus and Cassius, the assassins who still hold power in the eastern provinces. The triumvirate is ruthless, unleashing proscription's death lists targeting their enemies. Thousands, including Cicero, are hunted down and killed, their wealth seized to fund the war. Octavian proves he's no innocent boy. He signs off on these murders, showing a cold pragmatism that shocks even his allies. Rome's streets become a slaughterhouse, and the Republic's ideals begin to fade. The stage is now set for a showdown. In 42 BC, Octavian and Antony lead their armies to Philippi, a city in northern Greece. Brutus and Cassius have amassed a formidable force, backed by the wealth of Asia Minor. The battles of Philippi are brutal, spanning weeks. Antony's military genius shines, while Octavian, still green, struggles to keep up. Yet their combined strength prevails. Brutus and Cassius are defeated, both taking their own lives. The assassins are gone, but victory only deepens the rift between Octavian and Antony. With their common enemy dead, what holds the triumvirate together? The answer lies in a fragile division of power and a looming clash that will change Rome forever. This brings us to the edge of a new chapter. Octavian has survived his first test, proving he's more than Caesar's shadow. But the road ahead is treacherous. Antony commands the east, with Cleopatra at his side, while Octavian consolidates power in Rome. The Republic hangs by a thread, and the boy who would be emperor is only beginning to show his true strength. Join us as we move to the next act, where alliances crumble and a single battle at sea will decide the fate of an empire. The dust of Philippi has settled, and the assassins of Julius Caesar are no more. Octavian and Mark Antony stand victorious, but their alliance is a fragile thread stretched taut over a divided Rome. The Second Triumvirate, forged in blood and necessity, has crushed its enemies, yet the Republic remains a battleground of ambition. Octavian, the young heir of Caesar, has proven he can hold his own, but the real test lies ahead. Antony, the seasoned general, commands the east with Cleopatra's wealth at his side, while Octavian tightens his grip on Rome. The stage is set for a clash that will redefine an empire. Let's dive into Chapter 2, The Road to Actium. In 42 BC, the victory at Philippi marks a turning point, but it's no triumph for unity. The second triumvirate, Octavian, Antony, and the lesser-known Lepidus, divides the Roman world like a spoils of war. Antony claims the wealthy eastern provinces, including Egypt, where he will soon entangle himself with Cleopatra. Lepidus is relegated to Africa, a quieter corner of the empire. Octavian, tasked with governing Italy in the west, draws the short straw. Italy is the heart of Rome, but it's also a cauldron of unrest. Caesar's veterans demand land. The economy is strained, and the Senate watches Octavian's every move, wary of his growing power. At just 21 years old, Octavian faces a Herculean task: stabilize Rome while keeping Antony, his rival and ally, in check. The question isn't just whether he can succeed, it's whether he can survive. Octavian's first challenge is the land crisis. Caesar's veterans, loyal to his name, expect rewards for their service. Octavian promises them plots of land, but there's a catch. The land must come from Italian farmers, many of whom are evicted without compensation. This sparks outrage. Riots erupt, and Octavian's popularity takes a hit. To make matters worse, Antony's brother, Lucius Antonius, and Antony's wife, Fulvia, seize the opportunity to stir rebellion. In 41 BC, they rally disgruntled farmers and veterans against Octavian in what becomes known as the Perusian War. The conflict is brutal but brief. Octavian besieges their stronghold in Perusia, starving them into submission by early 40 BC. Fulvia flees, and Lucius is spared, a rare act of mercy that shows Octavian's knack for calculated leniency. The war, though small, is a wake-up call. Octavian realizes that ruling Rome requires more than Caesar's name. It demands control over hearts and minds. Let's shift to Antony, whose path in the east takes a very different course. Antony arrives in Asia Minor in 41 BC, summoning Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, to Tarsus to answer for her neutrality during the war against the assassins. Their meeting is the stuff of legend. Cleopatra arrives on a golden barge, dressed as Venus, her charm as potent as her wealth. Antony, already a man of passion, is captivated. What begins as a political alliance quickly becomes personal. By 40 BC, Cleopatra bears Antony twins, cementing their bond. For Antony, Egypt's riches and Cleopatra's cunning offer a power base to rival Rome itself. But his entanglement with a foreign queen raises eyebrows back home. Romans distrust Cleopatra, seeing her as a seductress, bent on enslaving their hero. Antony's choices living in Alexandria, adopting Eastern customs, fuel whispers of betrayal. Octavian, ever watchful, sees an opportunity. Back in Rome, Octavian works to rebuild his image. The Perusian War has left scars, but he turns adversity into advantage. He marries Scribonia, a move that strengthens ties with powerful Roman families, and begins distributing land more carefully to appease the veterans. He also leans on his childhood friend, Marcus Agrippa, a military genius whose loyalty proves invaluable. Agrippa's strategic mind complements Octavian's political acumen, forming a partnership that will shape Rome's future. Together, they tackle another threat, Sextus Pompey, son of Pompey the Great, who controls Sicily and disrupts Rome's grain supply with his pirate fleets. In 39 BC, Octavian negotiates a shaky truce with Sextus, buying time to stabilize Italy. But peace is fleeting. The triumvirate's divisions deepen, and Lepidus, the weakest link, fades into irrelevance, leaving Octavian and Antony as the true contenders. The year 40 BC brings a moment of reconciliation, or so it seems. Octavian and Antony meet in Brundisium to renew their alliance. To seal the deal, Antony marries Octavian's sister, Octavia, a woman of grace and intelligence. The marriage is meant to bind the two men, but it's a bandage on a festering rift. Antony soon returns to Cleopatra, leaving Octavia behind, a slight that Octavian will not forget. The Treaty of Brundisium divides the Roman world more formally. Antony rules the east, Octavian the west, with Italy as neutral ground. For now, both men play nice, but the clock is ticking. Octavian uses the peace to strengthen his position, building a navy to challenge Sextus Pompey and cultivating alliances with the Senate. Antony, meanwhile, launches campaigns against Parthia, hoping to emulate Caesar's conquests. His ambitions are grand, but his focus on the east alienates him from Rome's heart. By 38 BC, the facade of unity crumbles. Octavian, with Agrippa's help, defeats Sextus Pompey in a series of naval battles, securing Sicily and Rome's grain supply. The victory boosts Octavian's prestige, but it also provokes Antony, who feels sidelined. Octavian's next move is bolder. He marginalizes Lepidus, stripping him of power after a failed bid to challenge Octavian's authority. The triumvirate is now a duel. Octavian, still in his mid-20s, has outmaneuvered two seasoned rivals, but Antony remains a formidable foe. Antony's Parthian campaign falters, costing him men and credibility, yet his alliance with Cleopatra keeps him afloat. Egypt's wealth funds his armies, and Cleopatra's influence grows, much to Rome's dismay. Let's pause to consider Octavian's genius: propaganda. He begins a campaign to paint Antony as a traitor, bewitched by a foreign queen. In Rome, Octavian spreads tales of Antony's excessive life in Alexandria, his children with Cleopatra, his plans to make her queen of Rome. These stories, exaggerated or not, strike a chord. Romans value tradition, and Cleopatra embodies everything they fear: a powerful woman, an Eastern monarch, a threat to their way of life. Octavian's rhetoric is masterful, turning public opinion against Antony while casting himself as Rome's defender. He also divorces Scribonia and marries Livia Drusilla, a move that solidifies his ties to Rome's aristocracy. Livia, a formidable partner, becomes his confidant, shaping his image as a family man devoted to Roman values. The breaking point comes in 32 BC. Octavian obtains Antony's will, likely through espionage, and reads it to the Senate. The document, real or forged, declares Antony's intention to bequeath Roman territories to Cleopatra's children and be buried in Alexandria. The Senate is outraged, declaring Antony an enemy of Rome. Octavian seizes the moment, rallying the West against Antony and Cleopatra. War is inevitable, but it's not just a war, it's a crusade. Octavian frames it as Rome versus Egypt, civilization versus decadence. The stage is set for the final act, the Battle of Actium. In 31 BC, the fleets of Octavian and Antony clash off the coast of Greece at Actium. Antony, backed by Cleopatra's ships, commands a larger force, but Octavian has Agrippa, whose naval tactics prove decisive. The battle is chaotic fire, ramming ships and churning seas. Cleopatra, sensing defeat, flees with her treasure ships, and Antony follows, abandoning his men. Octavian's victory is total. Actium isn't just a military triumph, it's a propaganda coup. Antony and Cleopatra limp back to Alexandria, their dreams shattered. Octavian pursues, and by 30 BC, both are dead: Antony by his own sword, Cleopatra by her own hand, as we explored in her story. Rome is Octavian's alone. This victory marks the end of an era. The Republic, battered by decades of civil war, is on its knees. Octavian stands at the precipice of absolute power, but he's not yet Augustus. How does he transform himself from a warlord into an emperor without alienating Rome's traditions? The answer lies in the next chapter, where cunning gives way to creation, and a new Rome rises from the ashes. Join us as we explore the birth of the Roman Empire and the man who made it eternal. The Battle of Actium has redrawn the map of power. Octavian stands alone, the undisputed master of Rome, with Mark Antony and Cleopatra defeated, and their dreams of an Eastern empire reduced to ash. The year is 31 BC, and the Republic, battered by decades of civil war, lies at a crossroads. Octavian's victory is not just military, it's a mandate. Rome looks to him to end the chaos, but the path to peace is fraught with peril. How does a man who has won through war and propaganda transform himself into the architect of an empire? This is the moment where Octavian becomes Augustus, and Rome becomes eternal. Welcome to Chapter 3, The Birth of an Empire. The aftermath of Actium is a delicate balancing act. Octavian, now 32 years old, returns to Rome as a conquering hero, but he treads carefully. The Republic's ideals, liberty, the Senate, the rule of the people still hold sway, at least in name. Caesar's dictatorship ended in blood, and Octavian knows that openly declaring himself king would invite the same fate. Yet Rome craves stability, and the people are weary of war. Octavian's challenge is monumental. He must consolidate absolute power while preserving the illusion of a restored republic. This is where his genius shines, not in the clash of swords, but in the art of governance, image, and reinvention. Let's set the scene. Rome in 30 BC is a city scarred but hopeful. The civil wars have claimed countless lives, drained the treasury, and eroded trust in the Senate. Octavian's triumph over Antony and Cleopatra has unified the Roman world. But unity is fragile. Egypt, now a Roman province, pours its wealth into Octavian's coffers, giving him the resources to rebuild. The Senate, purged of Antony's supporters, is pliable but wary. The people, from plebeians to patricians, yearn for peace but fear another tyrant. Octavian's first task is to disarm these fears. He begins by demobilizing much of his army, settling tens of thousands of veterans with land grants in Italy and the provinces. This isn't just practical, it's symbolic. By reducing his military presence, Octavian signals that the time for war is over. His next move is even bolder. In 29 BC, Octavian stages a series of triumph-slavish parades celebrating his victories over foreign enemies, carefully avoiding mention of Roman foes like Antony. The streets of Rome fill with cheering crowds as spoils from Egypt, including treasures from Cleopatra's palace, are displayed. Octavian uses this wealth to fund public works. Temples are restored, aqueducts repaired, and the city's infrastructure revitalized. These acts cast him as a benefactor, not a conqueror. He also closes the Temple of Janus, a ritual signifying that Rome is at peace for the first time in decades. The message is clear. Octavian is the bringer of order, the heir to Caesar's glory without his fatal flaws. But the real transformation comes in 27 BC, a pivotal year that marks the birth of the Roman Empire. Octavian, in a carefully choreographed act, appears before the Senate and offers to relinquish his powers. He claims he wishes to restore the Republic, stepping back to live as a private citizen. The Senate, whether out of fear, gratitude, or calculation, refuses. Instead, they shower him with honors. They grant him the title Augustus, the revered one, a name steeped in religious and moral authority, free from the taint of kingship. They also bestow the title Princeps, or first citizen, positioning him as the leader of the Senate rather than a dictator. This is a masterstroke. Augustus, as he is now called, wields supreme power while maintaining the facade of republican tradition. The Senate still meets, consuls are elected, but real authority rests with him. Let's explore how Augustus consolidates this power. His control is built on three pillars: the army, the provinces, and the Roman people. First, the army. Augustus reforms the military, creating a standing force loyal to him alone. The legions, once raised by individual generals, are now funded by the state, with fixed terms of service and pensions for veterans. He establishes the Praetorian Guard, an elite unit stationed in Rome, serving as both his bodyguard and a symbol of his authority. By controlling the military, Augustus ensures no rival can challenge him as he and Antony once did. Second, the provinces. Augustus divides the Roman world into two types: senatorial provinces, governed by the Senate in stable regions like Asia and Africa, and imperial provinces, under his direct control in volatile areas like Gaul and Egypt. This division appears to share power, but the imperial provinces house most of Rome's legions, giving Augustus unchecked military dominance. Egypt, with its vast wealth, becomes his personal domain, its grain feeding Rome and its gold funding his projects. This system allows Augustus to govern the empire efficiently while keeping the Senate's pride intact. Third, the Roman people. Augustus understands that power rests on perception. He invests heavily in propaganda, reshaping Rome's cultural and physical landscape. He commissions poets like Virgil, whose epic Aeneid links Rome's destiny to Augustus's rule, casting him as the heir to mythical heroes. Sculptures and coins depict him as youthful and divine, often with Apollo, his patron god. His public works are staggering. The Forum of Augustus, with its grand temple of Mars Ultor, celebrates his victories. The Pantheon, begun under Agrippa, glorifies Rome's gods. And countless roads and aqueducts knit the empire together. Augustus famously boasts, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble." These projects aren't just practical, they're a statement of permanence, tying his name to Rome's glory. But Augustus's rule isn't without challenges. The Senate, though compliant, harbors traditionalists who resent his dominance. To neutralize them, Augustus cultivates loyalty through patronage, granting key families wealth and positions. He also reforms the Senate, reducing its size and filling it with his supporters, ensuring it serves as a rubber stamp for his policies. Another challenge is succession. Augustus has no son, and Roman tradition frowns on hereditary rule. His marriage to Livia Drusilla, a formidable political partner, produces no children, so he turns to his nephews and stepchildren. His nephew Marcellus is an early favorite, but Marcellus dies young in 23 BC, a blow that forces Augustus to rethink his plans. He later adopts Livia's sons, Tiberius and Drusus, setting the stage for a dynasty, though not without tension. Let's shift to the broader empire. Augustus's reign ushers in the Pax Romana, a 200-year era of relative peace and prosperity. He expands Rome's borders, annexing territories in Spain, Gaul, and the Alps, while securing the Danube and Rhine frontiers. His campaigns are cautious, avoiding the overreach that doomed Antony's Parthian adventure. In 20 BC, he negotiates the return of Roman standards lost to Parthia, a diplomatic triumph celebrated as a military victory. These successes solidify Rome's image as an invincible power, with Augustus at its helm. Trade flourishes, connecting the empire from Britain to India, and Roman law and culture spread, laying the foundations of Western civilization. Yet the Pax Romana comes at a cost. Augustus's peace is enforced by an iron grip. Dissent is quietly crushed, and his secret police, the Frumentari, monitor potential threats. His moral reforms, aimed at restoring traditional Roman values, are strict. Laws penalize adultery and encourage marriage, reflecting his vision of a disciplined society. These policies win favor with conservatives but alienate some elites, including his own daughter Julia, whose scandals later test his resolve. Augustus's personal life is a study in contrast. The man who preaches family values navigates a web of political marriages and familial strife, balancing Livia's ambitions with the needs of the state. As we near the end of this chapter, let's reflect on Augustus's transformation. The boy who was once mocked as a nobody has become the princeps, a ruler who reshapes Rome without ever calling himself king. His reforms, military, provincial, cultural, create a system so robust it endures long after his death. But his legacy is not yet complete. The question of succession looms, and the empire's stability hinges on who will follow him. Can Augustus secure his dynasty, or will his carefully built order unravel? These are the threads we'll follow next, as we explore the final act of his life and the dawn of the Pax Romana. The road from Actium to empire has been one of cunning and creation. Augustus has not only won Rome, he has redefined it. His marble city, his loyal legions, and his divine image are the foundations of a new era. But even a god-king cannot escape mortality. Join us in the next chapter, where we unravel the triumphs and trials of Augustus's later years and discover how one man's vision became the blueprint for an empire that still echoes in our world today. The marble city of Rome gleams under Augustus's reign, a testament to his vision of an eternal empire. By 27 BC, he has transformed from a warlord into the princeps, the first citizen who rules without a crown. The Pax Romana begins to take root, bringing peace and prosperity to a world weary of war. Yet, beneath the grandeur of temples and the order of legions, challenges simmer. Augustus has built an empire, but can he secure its future? The question of succession looms, and the personal costs of his rule begin to surface. This is the story of his later years, where triumphs mingle with trials, and a mortal man cements a divine legacy. Welcome to Chapter 4, the Pax Romana and the Price of Power. The year is 23 BC, and Augustus is at the height of his power, but not without vulnerabilities. He falls gravely ill, a reminder that even the princeps is mortal. Rome holds its breath, for there is no clear successor. Augustus has no son, and his efforts to groom an heir have faltered. His nephew, Marcellus, married to his daughter Julia, was a promising candidate, but Marcellus's sudden death at 19 shatters those plans. Whispers of poison, perhaps linked to Livia, Augustus's ambitious wife, circulate, though no evidence confirms such intrigue. The crisis forces Augustus to confront a harsh reality. His empire, built on his singular genius, risks collapsing without a stable succession. This moment marks a shift, as Augustus begins to balance his public triumphs with the private struggles of securing a dynasty. Let's explore the Pax Romana, the golden age that defines Augustus's legacy. By the late 20s BC, Rome's borders stretch from the Atlantic to the Euphrates, a vast empire knit together by roads, trade, and law. Augustus maintains peace through a delicate balance of strength and diplomacy. He avoids reckless expansion, learning from the failures of Antony's Parthian campaign. Instead, he secures key frontiers, the Rhine and Danube in the north, the Sahara in the south, and the Parthian border in the east. In 20 BC, he negotiates the return of Roman standards captured by Parthia decades earlier, a bloodless victory celebrated as a triumph. This diplomatic coup reinforces his image as a leader who conquers without war, a stark contrast to the chaos of the Republic's final years. The empire's prosperity is tangible. Egypt's grain feeds Rome's million inhabitants, while trade routes bring silk from China and spices from India. Augustus's reforms ensure this wealth is shared, at least among the elite. He rebuilds Rome's infrastructure, constructing aqueducts that deliver clean water and sewers that curb disease. His Forum of Augustus, with its Temple of Mars Ultor, becomes a symbol of Roman might, while the rebuilt Pantheon, overseen by Agrippa, honors the gods who bless Rome's success. These projects are more than stone and mortar, they are propaganda, etching Augustus's name into the city's soul. Poets like Virgil and Horace, patronized by Augustus's ally Maecenas, weave his rule into Rome's mythology. Virgil's Aeneid casts Augustus as the destined heir of Aeneas, a leader ordained by fate to guide Rome to greatness. But peace comes with control. Augustus's Rome is no democracy. He maintains the Senate, but it serves as a ceremonial body, its members handpicked for loyalty. The Praetorian Guard, stationed in Rome, ensures his safety and enforces his will. A network of informants, the frumentarii, monitors dissent, from tavern gossip to senatorial plots. Augustus's moral laws, introduced in 18 BC, reflect his vision of a disciplined society. He promotes marriage and childbirth to bolster Rome's population, while harsh penalties for adultery aim to restore traditional values. These laws win favor with conservatives but spark resentment among the elite, who chafe under such scrutiny. Augustus himself is not immune to irony. His private life, marked by political marriages and family scandals, often contradicts the virtues he preaches. Let's turn to those family struggles, for they are the crucible of Augustus's later years. His marriage to Livia Drusilla, now over 2 decades strong, is a partnership of minds, not passion. Livia, intelligent and ruthless, is his closest advisor, managing alliances and shaping his image. Yet their lack of children complicates succession. Augustus's daughter Julia, from his earlier marriage to Scribonia, becomes a pawn in his dynastic plans. After Marcellus's death, Augustus marries Julia to Agrippa, his loyal general and friend, in 21 BC. The match produces 3 sons, Gaius, Lucius, and Agrippa Postumusum. Augustus adopts as his own, grooming them as heirs. Agrippa's death in 12 BC is a blow, leaving Julia a widow and Augustus without his most trusted ally. He then marries Julia to Tiberius, Livia's son from her first marriage, a move that elevates Tiberius but sows discord. Julia, spirited and defiant, resents the union, and Tiberius, dour and reluctant, prefers military life to court intrigue. The succession question grows thornier as the years pass. Gaius and Lucius, Augustus's adopted sons, are raised as princes, but their youth makes them untested. Tiberius, a proven general, is a logical choice, but his strained relationship with Julia and his aloof demeanor alienate the court. Livia, ever the strategist, quietly champions her son, creating tension within the imperial household. By 6 BC, Tiberius, frustrated by Julia's infidelity and his own marginalization, retires to Rhodes, a self-imposed exile that shocks Rome. Augustus, furious, turns to Gaius and Lucius, but fate is unkind. Lucius dies in 2 AD and Gaius in 4 AD, both in their early 20s, from illness or injury abroad. The losses devastate Augustus, who is now in his late 60s. With Agrippa Postumus too young and erratic, Augustus is forced to recall Tiberius, adopting him as his heir in 4 AD. The decision is pragmatic but bitter, as Augustus and Tiberius share little warmth. Julia's fate adds another layer of tragedy. Her scandal-alleged affairs with prominent Romans become a public embarrassment. In 2 BC, Augustus, the champion of moral reform, exiles his own daughter to a remote island, a punishment that stuns the elite. Whether Julia's actions were rebellion or mere indiscretion, her banishment reflects Augustus's willingness to sacrifice family for image. The affair tarnishes his moral campaign and fuels gossip about his hypocrisy. Livia's role in Julia's downfall is debated, but her influence grows as Tiberius rises. These domestic dramas reveal a paradox. Augustus, who unified an empire, struggles to unify his family, a microcosm of the empire's fragility. Beyond the palace, Augustus's later years are marked by both consolidation and caution. He avoids major wars, focusing on securing Rome's frontiers. The conquest of Germany stalls after the Varian disaster in 9 AD, when 3 legions are ambushed in the Teutoburg forest, a rare defeat that humbles Augustus. He reportedly paces the palace crying, "Varus, give me back my legions." The loss reinforces his preference for stability over expansion. Diplomatically, he maintains peace with Parthia and strengthens ties with client kingdoms, ensuring Rome's dominance without costly campaigns. His administration, refined over decades, runs like a well-oiled machine, with governors, tax systems, and a postal network binding the empire. Augustus's public image evolves with age. No longer the youthful victor of Actium, he is now the Pater Patriae, father of the country, a title granted in 2 BC. Statues depict him as serene and wise, a godlike figure guiding Rome's destiny. Yet, he remains accessible, living modestly in his Palatine home and attending Senate meetings, preserving the illusion of republican humility. His health declines, but he conceals it, aware that any sign of weakness could destabilize the empire. By 14 AD, at age 75, Augustus senses his end. He travels to Nola, where he falls ill. On August 19, 14 AD, he dies, reportedly saying to Livia, "Have I played my part well?" His final words to the empire are a call to preserve his work, entrusting Rome to Tiberius. Augustus's death marks the end of an era, but his legacy endures. The Pax Romana continues under Tiberius, and the empire he built lasts centuries. His system, military loyalty, provincial control, and cultural unity becomes the blueprint for Roman rule. Yet his succession plan, marred by loss and compromise, reveals the empire's Achilles heel, dependence on a single ruler. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, starting with Tiberius, will test the strength of his vision. As we close this chapter, Augustus's life comes into focus. A man who rose from obscurity to godhood, who gave Rome peace at the cost of liberty, and whose family paid the price for his ambition. His marble city, his laws, and his Pax Romana are monuments to his will, but they stand on the fragile foundation of human loyalty. What happens when the next emperor lacks his genius? Join us in the final chapter, where we explore the enduring impact of Augustus and the empire that carried his name into eternity. Augustus is gone, his final breath taken in Nola in 14 AD, leaving behind a Rome transformed. The boy who inherited Caesar's name has become the Pater Patriae, the father of an empire that spans continents. The Pax Romana he ushered in promises centuries of prosperity, and his marble city stands as a monument to his vision. Yet, his death raises a question that echoes through the ages. Can the empire he built endure without him? The succession to Tiberius, fraught with compromise, hints at cracks in the foundation. In this final chapter, we explore the legacy of Augustus, his work shaped Rome and the world, and why his shadow looms large even today. Welcome to Chapter 5, The Eternal Legacy of Augustus. The moment of Augustus's death is a turning point, but not a rupture. Unlike the chaos that followed Julius Caesar's assassination, Rome transitions smoothly to Tiberius, a testament to Augustus's foresight. Tiberius, Livia's son and Augustus's adopted heir, ascends as emperor, inheriting a system designed to outlast any one man. Augustus's reformist standing army, provincial administration, and centralized treasury provide a framework that keeps the empire running. The Senate, now a ceremonial body, ratifies Tiberius' rule without dissent. The Praetorian Guard, loyal to the imperial house, ensures stability. This seamless handover is Augustus's first legacy, a government so robust it can function without his hand on the reins. Let's step back to understand the scope of this achievement. When Augustus became princeps in 27 BC, Rome was a republic in name only, scarred by decades of civil war. By his death, it is an empire in all but name, stretching from Britain to Syria with a population of over 50 million. The Pax Romana, which begins under Augustus, is not just a cessation of war, it's a golden age of trade, culture, and connectivity. Roman roads, stretching over 250 miles, link distant provinces, carrying goods, armies, and ideas. Aqueducts bring water to cities, enabling urban growth. The Mediterranean, once a battleground, becomes a Roman lake, its ports bustling with ships from Alexandria to Hispania. This interconnected world, knit together by Augustus's vision, lays the groundwork for Western civilization. The Pax Romana is Augustus's most enduring gift, but it's not without cost. Peace is maintained through control, and liberty is the price. The Republic's ideal selections, free debate, and shared power are memories, replaced by a system where one man holds the strings. Augustus's successors, starting with Tiberius, inherit this autocracy, but not all wield it with his finesse. Tiberius, competent but paranoid, lacks Augustus's charisma, and his reign sees growing unrest. The Julio-Claudian dynasty Caligula, Claudius, Nero test the empire's resilience, their excesses exposing the flaw in Augustus's design, an empire dependent on the quality of its emperor. Yet even as these rulers falter, Augustus's institutions endure, carrying Rome through crises for centuries. Let's explore the cultural legacy, for Augustus's impact transcends politics. His patronage of the arts creates a Roman identity that resonates through history. Virgil's Aeneid, completed under Augustus, is more than a poem, it's a national epic, tying Rome's origins to divine destiny and Augustus's rule. Horace's odes and Ovid's poetry, though sometimes critical, flourish in this era of patronage. Augustus's architectural revolution reshapes Rome's skyline. The Forum of Augustus, the Temple of Apollo, and the rebuilt Pantheon become symbols of imperial grandeur. These works inspire later generations, from Renaissance architects to modern city planners. The image of Augustus himself, youthful, serene, godlike, becomes a template for leadership, immortalized in statues and coins that circulate across the empire. Beyond Rome, Augustus's legacy shapes the provinces. His policy of Romanization spreading, Latin, law, and culture creates a shared identity across diverse peoples. Cities like Emerita Augusta in Spain and Leptis Magna in Africa mimic Rome's design, with forums, theaters, and baths. Local elites adopt Roman customs, becoming stakeholders in the empire's success. This cultural unity, fostered by Augustus, binds the empire together, even as it erases indigenous traditions. The spread of Roman law, standardized under Augustus, introduces concepts like citizenship and property rights, influencing legal systems for millennia, including the foundations of modern Western law. But Augustus's legacy is not without shadows. His moral reforms, meant to restore Roman virtue, leave a mixed record. Laws promoting marriage and punishing adultery aim to strengthen society but often alienate the elite. His daughter Julia's exile, a public spectacle, underscores the personal toll of his policies. The imperial family, meant to embody Roman ideals, becomes a source of scandal, from Julia's disgrace to the later excesses of Caligula and Nero. Augustus's insistence on a dynasty, while stabilizing in his lifetime, plants seeds of instability as the Julio-Claudians grapple with power's corrupting weight. Another shadow is the cost of empire. The Pax Romana relies on military might, with legions stationed along frontiers from the Rhine to the Euphrates. Maintaining this force strains the treasury, and taxation burdens the provinces. While Augustus's Egypt provides wealth, later emperors struggle to balance the budget, a challenge that will haunt Rome's decline. The Varian disaster of 9 AD, where 3 legions were lost in Germany, reveals the limits of Roman power, a rare defeat that haunts Augustus in his final years. These cracks, though small in his lifetime, foreshadow the empire's eventual vulnerabilities. Let's turn to the personal side of Augustus's legacy, for it's in his family that we see the man behind the myth. Livia, his partner of over 50 years, survives him, her influence ensuring Tiberius's succession. Her reputation as a schemer possibly involved in the deaths of Marcellus, Gaius, and Lucius may be exaggerated, but it reflects her formidable presence. Augustus's relationship with Julia, once his pride, ends in tragedy, her exile a wound that never heals. His adopted sons, Gaius and Lucius, represent lost hopes, their deaths a reminder of fate's cruelty. Tiberius, the reluctant heir, embodies Augustus's pragmatism, but lacks his warmth, setting a colder tone for the empire's future. These personal losses humanize Augustus, a man who built an empire but could not control his own household. The world Augustus leaves behind is profoundly changed. His empire endures for over 400 years in the West and a millennium in the East as Byzantium. The Pax Romana fosters Christianity's spread, which will reshape global culture. Roman law, language, and engineering influence Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Their echoes visible in modern cities, legal codes, and infrastructure. Augustus's model of leadership combining authority with the appearance of humility inspires rulers from Charlemagne to Napoleon. Even his flaws, like the dynastic obsession, resonate in later monarchies, where succession remains a perennial challenge. As we reflect on Augustus's legacy, we see a paradox. A man who saved Rome by ending its freedom, who built peace on the ashes of war, and whose personal sacrifices mirrored the empire's costs. His Pax Romana is a triumph, but it's a triumph bought with control, surveillance, and the suppression of dissent. His marble city dazzles, but it hides the struggles of those who paid for it. His dynasty ensures stability, but it sows the seeds of tyranny. Augustus is neither hero nor villain. He is a man who saw Rome's potential and bent history to his will. Let's bring this story full circle. The boy who stepped into Caesar's shadow in 44 BC became the architect of an empire that still shapes our world. From the chaos of the Republic to the order of the Pax Romana, Augustus's life is a saga of ambition, cunning, and vision. His legacy is not just in the stones of Rome or the laws of empire, but in the idea that one person with enough will can change the course of history. As we close this series, we invite you to reflect. Was Augustus the savior of Rome, or the man who traded its freedom for peace? Share your thoughts, and join us next time as we explore the next chapter of Rome's epic story, perhaps the madness of Nero, the glory of Trajan, or the fall of an empire. Until then, thank you for traveling this journey through the eternal city. The legacy of Augustus lives on, and so does the story of Rome. Augustus is gone, his final breath taken in 14 AD, but Rome stands forever changed. The boy who claimed Caesar's name has sculpted an empire from the ashes of a broken republic. His Pax Romana promises centuries of peace. His marble city gleams as a beacon of civilization, and his laws bind millions across continents. Yet, As Rome mourns its pater patriae, a question hangs heavy. Can this empire endure without its architect? Tiberius, the reluctant heir, steps into a role no one else could fill. In this epilogue, we reflect on Augustus's eternal legacy and peer into the empire's next chapter. Welcome to the close of our saga, the dawn of forever. Picture Rome in 14 AD. The Forum of Augustus shines, its temples a testament to his glory. Aqueducts hum, feeding a city of 1,000,000 souls. The Senate bows to Tiberius, the new emperor, as the Praetorian Guard stands watch. Augustus was more than a ruler, he was Rome's heartbeat, his image on every coin, his name synonymous with power. His death is a seismic shift, but there is no chaos, no daggers in the dark. This is his first legacy, a system so strong that Rome transitions smoothly to Tiberius. The legions, the treasury, the provinces all hum with the order Augustus built. The Pax Romana, his greatest gift, begins its 200-year reign, a golden age of trade, culture, and unity. This peace is no small feat. Augustus inherited a Rome bleeding from civil war, its Senate fractured, its people weary. By his death, the empire spans from Britain to Egypt, a network of roads and ports connecting 50 million lives. Grain flows from Alexandria, silk from China, wine from Gaul. Roman law, born under Augustus, spreads justice and citizenship, shaping the West's legal foundations. His city, transformed from brick to marble, inspires awe, its pantheon and forum echoing in modern capitals. Poets like Virgil, patronized by Augustus, weave his rule into Rome's myth, their words fueling Renaissance art and literature. This is Augustus's world, a civilization that plants the seeds of our own. But every legacy has its shadows. The Pax Romana rests on control, not freedom. Augustus preserved the Senate's facade but gutted its power. The emperor's will is law, and Tiberius' reign will test this autocracy's limits. The Julio-Claudians Caligula, Nero will expose its flaws, their tyranny a dark mirror to Augustus's restraint. His dynasty, meant to secure the future, brings scandal and strife, from Julia's exile to Tiberius's paranoia. The empire's wealth masks inequalities, its taxes burdening provinces, its legions crushing dissent. Augustus' peace is a triumph, but it's bought with liberty's surrender, a trade-off that haunts Rome's future. His personal cost was no less steep. Julia, his daughter, rots in exile, a victim of his moral laws. Livia, his partner, survives, her ambition a whispered curse. His heirs, Gaius and Lucius, are lost to fate, leaving Tiberius, the reluctant son, to carry the torch. Augustus, who built an empire, could not tame his family, a human tragedy, beneath the godlike facade. Yet, this complexity makes him timeless, a man who reshaped history but bore its weight. What's next for Rome? Tiberius, brooding and distrustful, inherits a throne he never sought. Can he sustain Augustus's peace, or will his reign unravel the empire's seams? Our next video dives into Tiberius's story, a tale of intrigue, betrayal, and the shadow of a legend. From Germanicus's mysterious death to Sejanus's deadly schemes, it's a chapter you won't want to miss. Was Augustus Rome's savior or its captor? Share your thoughts below and tell us, Nero's madness, Trajan's glory, or Rome's fall next? Subscribe, hit the bell, and revisit Caesar and Cleopatra to see where it all began. Thank you for joining us. Augustus' Rome lives on, and so does its story. Until next time, farewell from the Eternal Empire.